Hey, hi everybody! I hope you're all having a good day. I hope you're all smiling and enjoying your lovely day. In this following tutorial, I'll be showing you on how to set up virtual motion capture for programs such as Warudo, VNyan, and VSeeFace. If there's any other programs that you want to connect virtual motion capture to, you can apply this information to said program, but we're going to focus on those main three since they are the most commonly used VTuber program for 3D VTubers. So, I will say as a heads up though, there are two different versions of virtual motion capture. There is the free version that anyone can get, I believe, on their boost page. But then there is also the paid version on Patreon, which is $3 USD. And depending on your currency, you can translate that. It's on the Patreon page. I'll leave it in the description below where you can buy it. But if you want to send virtual motion capture data, like having 11.5 tracking for VSeeFace or for Warudo or for VNyan, then you will have to pay for the Patreon version of virtual motion capture. I'll give a heads up though that VNyan and Warudo in particular already have native SteamVR support. So if you want to use those, if you want to use those methods instead, then please use those. And maybe in the future, I'll probably make a video on those. But for now, I'm just going to focus on virtual motion capture for those who are curious or prefer the movement of virtual motion capture. So what we're going to do is that, assuming that you bought it from Patreon, and again, you just only have to subscribe for 1 month and you can cancel after, or you can keep supporting the developer if you so like. But I'm using BandyZip. You can use the default Windows extractor, or you can use WinRAR, whichever, and you simply can just put the folder wherever you want on your PC like that. It is a portable program, so this should be easy to move from PC to PC. So you simply just extract the folder like so, and then you're going to find this exe file that's called virtual motion capture. Now, I'll also give a heads up before we begin this program, because there's another warnings I do have to say. You need Steam to be installed. Like, if you hate Steam, I'm sorry, but you are going to be needing Steam, which I have SteamVR right here, because virtual motion capture will only intake data from SteamVR. There is a VMC intake, like a VMC receiver in virtual motion capture if you use the newest version, but even then, if you want to use virtual motion capture for the VR support it has, you have to use it with SteamVR. So make sure that this is here with you. Another thing also, for those who are curious about headsets. Now, if you do want to use your Quest Pro or your Quest 2 or Vive, whichever VR headset you have, you can use it as your head tracker for virtual motion capture. Otherwise, if you don't want to use a headset, because I'm not using a headset right now, then I will say you can use it without the headset. However, you are going to need to modify your SteamVR, which in the description below, I will put a dedicated video tutorial, and also the written, if you prefer a written tutorial. There's a GitHub page that explains how to remove the headset support from SteamVR. So if you want to use, let's say, a Vive tracker or Tundra for the head, then follow that tutorial first, then come back here, since I don't want to make this tutorial too long. Just check that tutorial out in the description. Otherwise, let's go ahead for my case, since I already have SteamVR, and again, I am assuming that you already know what you're doing, but I'll have other links if you don't know what you're doing. So go over here to virtual motion capture, open that program here, and we're going to click on more info and then run anyway. So we'll do that. And then we'll open up virtual motion capture here. Then I will press on yes. You may not be able to see that pop up, but you'll see here that there's a firewall setting that will appear, and it'll ask you to configure your firewall setting for virtual motion capture. Simply press on OK, or you can have don't show again, but I'll say OK and let that continue, and then there you go. There will be nothing here yet, and you'll have your control panel here. The first thing we need to do is load a VRM file. So If you have a VRM file from Vroid, or if you're from Scratch Model and you have a VRM version of your model, you can use that. I would be more heavily recommend to make sure it is the same exact model, same exact armature, so that way proportions-wise it is correct. Otherwise, if you don't have a VRM, you don't know where to access one or get one even, I will leave a download. There's going to be a lot of resources in the description, believe me. You might want to take a look at that. But there is Test-Chan's VRM download. I would heavily recommend take a look at, so that way you can be able to use a VRM file if you don't have one. So I'm going to open VRM file. I'm going to import VRM here, and then I'm going to have this all censored right here because you don't need to know every file except for the fact of Test-Chan, which right here. So right here, there's Test-Chan. I'm going to import that file. And then I'm going to click on agree and import here. And then once I have that, it will have her loaded like so. That's correct. So from there, you can then go into the settings right here. We're not talking about these two. We're talking about this one, setting. So click on this. And then we're going to go over to open tracker assignment settings. For my case, I'm using 11 Vive trackers, and in case you're wondering where the heck they are, pretty much you just look at this diagram here, or I could, if I find a picture to me who's the editor, just put in like a human with Vive trackers on the side here, some extra reference, wherever the heck it is, post. Whatever the frick. But for the most part, this diagram should at least give you an idea already on where to put the Vive tracker. So you have one in the head, chest, all that. You do not need 11 Vive trackers, by the way. You don't need that. In fact, the very, very minimum, if you just want to use Vive trackers and you want the bare minimum for tracking without a headset, you can use pretty much just 6 Vive trackers or 6 Tundra trackers. If you cannot afford Tundra or Vive trackers, or you don't have, like, you know, the budget or the room or anything, which I will say Tundras and Vives do work in small rooms depending on the setup of the base station. But even then, if you only just have your VR headset and controllers, you can actually just use just those 3, and virtual motion capture will automatically make your legs move via locomotion. But that's a heads up. So it really just depends. Do you want 11-point tracking? Do you want 6-point tracking or 3-point tracking with your headset? It's up to you really on what you have. Just put whatever you can and then just experiment with the mocap. But I will say that right here there is a list of my trackers. So if I were to move my body around, you will see that it will light up in green. When it's lit up in green, that means that tracker is being detected and it's moving. So simply I can, for example, move my right hand, and that number right there is the one I should assign to my right hand. So 70 will go into my right hand, for example. There you go. And it's also nice as well that the pop-up list can also be here, so you can just shake that tracker and, you know, you can do that. Again, I would probably recommend, like, for your Vive tracking setup, maybe you might want to not put the Vive trackers on your body yet until you make sure that you map these and I'm not sure how you would label it, because if you put like tape on the Vive tracker, you might cause the Vive tracker to struggle on tracking because the infrared on the Vive and Tundra. So I wouldn't recommend putting a label on the tracker itself, but on your strap maybe. But even then, for my case, I didn't even label my trackers, honestly. In fact, I only know which one's my tracker based on the type of strap it uses. That's pretty much it. So honestly, you'll have to figure out how you'll do it, but for the most part, just shake the tracker until you recognize it. For my case, I already know which tracker is which, because I've done this multiple times. But you take your time, shake the tracker, and let's see here. So that one is a B. My left elbow is 1F right here. My right elbow is a D, I think A0. I think, yeah, A0. And then right knee will be my E5. Where's my E5? They're here. And then my right foot tracker, that is 2-7. 2-7 right there. Left will be 3C. You're just pretty much seeing how I'm mapping these, just so you see me in real time. My left knee is, let's see, left knee is 2F. That's correct. And then lastly, my waist, which I'll shake that tracker. I believe that one is A9. A9. There you are. A9. All right, so now I have all my trackers set up here. And again, it may take like a couple minutes for you. Really depends how many trackers you're setting up. But I definitely would recommend have a backup screenshot in case you do lose these settings. So heads up there. If you are a VR chat player, you could also like reference how you'll map your tracker simply by right-clicking on Manage Trackers here. You can go to Manage Tracker, and if you use VR chat before and you have labeled your trackers before, you could use this as reference, which I also did that with mine. If you've never used it for VR chat before, then yeah, you're just gonna have to figure that one here. But once you have it all mapped to how you like it, what you'll then do there, and these right here, there's these settings here which can help with like adjusting like any IK issues with your hands. I'm not going to touch that, usually kind of messes up, but there's that. So I'm going to click on close, and then what I'm also going to do now is that I'm going to enable the OSC Sender, or the VMC right here. So make sure you enable this and keep in mind of the port number right here. This is very important that you keep in mind. Usually most VTuber programs have this number by default anyways. Apply, click close. And then what we're going to do now that we have mapped the trackers, what I'm going to then do next is I'm going to click on calibration here. Now, this is very important because if you choose the wrong setting, you're going to look really ridiculous. Now, from what I've seen, and from my personal experience and even my clients' experience, never use standard mode. I do not know what is wrong with it. I think it might work all right if you're using just the headset and the your hand controller, so I think this will be all right. But even then, last I tested that, it was broken as heck. So don't even use this. I don't know why it exists because it's so borked. It can work for some people, but usually just not. Compatibility mode, the old calibration usually works quite well. And you have 3 different options. Though usually, for my case, I only choose the first one here because this usually gives me the best results. Everything else just borks my character to oblivion. I don't know why. I don't know if they'll fix it, but at least they allow us to have this option, which I appreciate. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and stand up. And the thing also to keep in mind too, you see how Test Chan's hands, where the palms are facing forward? I can't move the camera right now because it's in calibration mode, but you see how the palms are just facing front? You need to copy the exact same pose that Test Chan or even your model's doing. So do not have your palms facing downward, face it in front of you, like forward. So keep that in mind, otherwise your calibration will look really ridiculous. So press on calibration, assume T-pose, make sure you're straight, knees are straight, arms are straight, and you're looking straight as best as you can. And from there, you're able to then see how your tracking is. If you have issues with your tracking whatsoever, like for example, I don't know, you're crumbled up like a pretzel or something like that, then definitely make sure you go back to the calibration, try each setting and see if that works for you. But I usually see that the old calibration always works fine, no issues. Unless for the case I do the new calibration, then the old calibration, then yes, I would reboot virtual motion capture to fix that issue. Man, there's so many issues I gotta point out. But even then, yeah, that's an advice. I will also give some other quick advice as well, which if you were to look up any other Vive related guide from VR chat peeps, they will definitely give you some heads up about dongle interference, which is your Vive dongles or Tundra dongles, and also your base station occlusion. So definitely keep that in mind. that for instance, if you notice that, let's say I'm losing tracking, like my hand's flying away or my hip magically flies away, something like that, make sure that your Vive dongles are spread out as much as possible. Make sure that there's no reflective surfaces like mirrors or anything that's shiny, so get those out of your room. Make sure not to have too much Bluetooth or Wi-Fi in your room. Like if you have like multiple phones in your room with Wi-Fi on, make sure you turn those off so it doesn't interfere with the dongles, so it doesn't cause interference there. Make sure your base stations are set up properly. I have 2 on tripods and my third base station's like on a nightstand looking for my legs here. So just some quick advice on some troubleshooting tips I can give you. Probably for a different video, I'll have more information about like my own takes regarding situating your Vive setup, because it can be a lot. But hopefully that can sort of get you started for the most part, hopefully. Now, there's other settings that you can do with virtual motion capture. For instance, you could, and you don't have to worry about these if you don't want to. There is the background, so you can choose none, which has it where your background does, there's nothing in the background. Kind of like VMagic Mirror. You can also have it where it's a white background instead, or you can have green screen or blue screen if you want, if that's what you prefer. These other things, if you want to use virtual motion capture as your VTuber program. There's also the camera, which you can use the free camera, though you might want to like rotate downwards to see your character. This is if you want more control over the camera a bit, so that way you can preview. And again, I'm using middle mouse to pan, right click to rotate a little bit, and scroll to just move my character around. So I can be able to see like how my legs are. So there's that. And yeah, you can mess with the camera here. There's also the appearance. I'm not going to mess with those, but that's if you want to, again, use virtual motion capture as a VTuber program. You can mess with those. You can even adjust the face if you want to have audio lip sync from virtual motion capture to your VTuber program, which actually is right over here. So this is for if you want the eye blinks adjusted and then lip sync over here. I can set that to my voice, my microphone, and it can have the lip sync right here. So that's if you want. For my case, so there's that, and if you need more help, you can go over here. So although they're kind of self-explanatory for the most part, but those are there if you want it. Other than that, I will give one more warning about virtual motion capture. The arm twist. And there's also leg issues I've heard, but they're kind of not as common as the arm twist. You see how Tesh-chan, when I do this, you see how ridiculous the upper arms are? This is uncurable. There is no fix for this. This is just how virtual motion capture is with the arms. So I'll give that as a heads up. If you ever are weirded out by the upper arm twist, it's not your fault. I'm sorry. Hopefully the dev will fix that. I know the dev is aware about it. They are aware from what I've seen. They might look into better twists, but I don't know when, so I can't give a confirmation on that. But in the future, maybe there'll be fixes, but, we can only just see. So that's just something you'll have to keep in mind about. Now, if you want to do other fixes with your mocap, by the way, besides the fact that this upper twist arms is incurable, there are some things you can do. So go to the settings here, and you do have other things that you can adjust. So for example, you could adjust your hand rotation if you want. This is not going to fix the upper twist arms, I'm telling you. But this is still pretty nice if you want to, let's say, adjust the, let's say your elbow tracking's a little incorrect. You can use that to kind of correct it if you want. So there's that. You can also use it to adjust your hand if you want, let's say if the hand's a little too far or something like that. And it has some like added smoothness. You can even sync it to the left, so instead of doing both sliders, you just do one slider and it kind of just does it for both. So you can fine tune from here if you so like. And, that's if you want to like fine tune it. Mainly just hand position, rotation, if it's a little incorrect to you. But I wouldn't change this too much, because then your tracking might look a little bad, but it doesn't hurt to do a little bit edit, but don't go too extreme unless it is necessary. Other than that, what we're going to then do, you can also go into calibration setting right here. You can change the height if you want. So if you want, especially if you're not using the headset, this could be a little beneficial for you. For my case, it really doesn't matter. Like, as long as it moves good, it's fine. There you go. Had a little occlusion issue right there. But you could override the body height if you want, but you will have to recalibrate after you change it to see the effect. But you know, it's up to you if you want to change it to however you want. But for my case, I don't need it because it's already pretty darn good at automatically detecting it. And then you could also adjust the hip. So if you feel like you're going a little high, like let's say you're like this a lot, where it feels like your character is on his tippy toes too much, this might help a little bit by adding a little bit of an offset, mainly to Y. Y means up and down, Z means forward and back. So if you feel like, let's say the hip is a little too back, you might want to make that a little forward. So I can make that a little forward here. And then you can make the hips a little down if you want. I wouldn't overdo it. Again, it's up to you. You might have to do some trial and error with this, but you know, again, Y is up and down, Z is back and forth, and know your positives. So up, down, and then I believe forward is positive, or I don't fully remember, but you just experiment and see what looks the best for you. And then from there, pretty much if you want to use Tobii eye tracking or Vive Eye Pro, you can use those. You got Vive facial tracker, you can use that here. And Makopi, you know, you got all those other things here, which doesn't really matter, at least to me. But for you, you might end up wanting to use it, so it's up to you pretty much. And you also got these things here. If you feel like the fixing knee rotation or elbow rotation is a bit wonky, you could disable those if you so desire. For me, they are actually fine by default, usually. And yeah, from there, if you've done any changes, definitely do a recalibration. Keep this saying right here, calibrate, palms forward, make sure your legs are straight, look forward, make sure you're at T-pose, palms forward again. And then from there, you're good. Although my elbows are a little wonky because of the fact that I changed the hand rotation stuff, which is why I never really touched that for good reasons. Because of the fact that it just can be a little derpish. Well, either way, it's whatever for my case. As long as it looks good to you, that's all that matters to me, really. So from there, a good advice that I also want to share is that you can actually save your virtual motion capture settings. This is very useful if you want to keep reusing the same settings and not have to go through the whole reassigning your trackers every single time. So all you're just simply going to do is click on Save Settings right here, and then you'll find a location in your PC that you want. For my case, I'm just going to save in Test Trans folder. So Test Chan VMC. I'm just going to save it that. I'll click on Save right here. And then you can reopen the settings by clicking on Open Settings, and you can open that JSON file if you ever need to. Though, when you do save your settings for first time, usually that ends up becoming your default setting for virtual motion capture. So you won't have to worry about opening the file every time, unless there's different things that you want to switch between them. But this is really good if you want to just make sure you save your stuff. Please do that. Let's now send virtual motion capture to our favorite VTuber program. So let's start off with VSeeFace. So remember that thing I told you right here for the VMC, the OSC VMC Sender thingamabob here? Make sure that is enabled here, and then we're going to have VSeeFace open. Make sure that you choose your character choice. For my case, I'm going to actually choose my model. I'm going to choose that. I'm going to click on Start, and then from here, you can see my face is tracking, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over to these settings right here. We're going to go to General Settings. Then, we're going to go down over to the VMC here, and we need to receive the data. So, and again, for eye facial mocap, or if you're using the face tracking of VSeeFace, again, for my case, I'm using eye facial mocap, so make sure this is enabled, or just use your webcam tracking, which you can set up. Well, for my case, I don't have that enabled because it's iPhone I'm using, but if you have the webcam enabled, you have those things, make sure those are active. And then from here, you'll go into the receiver right here. Make sure that the number right here, this port number, you can copy and paste it, I believe. This number needs to match this receiver right here. So by default, it should be this. For my case, it was a different number. And from here, you can actually see the tracking actually works. Now, if you want to have more control over which tracking it takes over, you're going to click on Apply VSeeFace Tracking, and from there you can disable which ones you want and don't want. For my case, I'm going to disable these, so that way I have the VSeeFace expression from toggles, like this, for example. So I have those, and also the face tracking from my iPhone, pretty much. So just make sure those are disabled. If you want to track fingers, let's say you're using your leap motion or something, then you can have it track fingers and you can have your leap motion take over from there. And you can even add the bone smoothing right here if you feel like you need a little bit more smoothness with your tracking. So there you go. And from there, once you set that up properly, at least for VSeeFace, you will see that the tracking looks like this. And again, I heavily still recommend make sure in virtual motion capture, it is the same exact model. But if you were to not use the same model, it's not a big deal. But in terms of accuracy, it's much more accurate when it's the same model. Heads up. Now that you know VSeeFace, to my VNyan users, let's get virtual motion capture in that program. Now let's get VNyan receiving virtual motion capture. So keep in mind of the VMC port right here. This number, you need to make sure you do Control-C. So copy this number here. And then you're going to go over in VNyan, the settings here. Then you're going to move all the way down until you find the VMC layers right here. And make sure at least one of the receivers have this port number in there. And if by chance that on the regular you use like face only tracking, like for my case, you can see how my tracking with virtual motion capture and my iPhone is being, is like mixed together. And while this could be a really good option for people that want to have like virtual motion capture with the upper arm movement and like having like this sort of setup, you can kind of see it has some issues with like the arm sway and all that. So I mean, it's up to you, but at the same time, I want to have it where my body is VMC's virtual motion captures, and then the face is from VNyan. So what I'm going to do is that for my case, since I'm using iPhone, the same will apply if you prefer to use the webcam hands, or like if you want the webcam for the fingers, same information applies, or even leap motion for the fingers. You will need to look into the apply settings right here and just choose which ones you want applied. So for my case, since I'm iPhone, I go to the iPhone section and I make sure that these are zeroed out. I'll just press 0 on each of these, and I make sure that because I want to have the face tracking from VNyan, that I have the track blend shapes here. And for if you're using webcam, for instance, then you just make sure that for these are set to 0 here. I believe, let's see. Yeah, over here, you might want to have like track hands on if you're using the webcam hands, for example. And same with leap motion as well. If you want to mix leap motion in there as well, you can make sure that you would make sure it's enabled. And I believe that over here, tracking mode, you can set that to only hands or only fingers. Kind of depends on what you want. Otherwise, from there, as you can see, there's also other things as well, just like in VSeeFace for this case, which also there's one more thing I do want to mention, because again, there's a lot of things I have to point out for VNyan, but I'll start with these things here, is that the track settings here, same thing as VSeeFace, where if you don't want the head to be tracked, or you only want to receive certain parts from virtual motion capture, especially if you're going to mix the arms and the face tracking, like the iPhone face tracking for the spine and all that from VNyan, then you can adjust it however you want. Kind of depends on what you're going for. And you can even add smoothing as well, which is really nice if you want to clear out some jittering if you want. It's really nice, so there's that. And if you want the audio lip sync from virtual motion capture, you can also set that as well if you like. But for my case, no. I will also say as a heads up too, for the tracking effect, you might want to have these disabled, because it can do some weird things. So make sure that's disabled. For my case, for my arms, for the tracking, I have a node graph that does the face tracking thingy, so that's kind of on me to like disable it, which for my case, I can go to node graph here since I use that, and I can disable any like node graphs here. So if I find you don't have to do this, this is just me to do, but over somewhere, because it's been a bit of time, I believe mine's right about here. So arm sway for my case, which might take some time to load, I would personally deactivate it so that way it doesn't interfere with my full body tracking. So there you go. And from there, it's definitely much nicer if you're using that. And one more thing for VNyan is that for tracking layers as well, all the way up here, there is a root rotation. This is pretty good if you want to adjust the positioning, which I believe for VNyan, right here, you might want to have it not do the root, so that way you can actually have full control over here. So this will definitely be really nice. And there you go. Although do note, I could be wrong, but do note you might not be able to move from one place to another if that's your concern. So just heads up there. For my case, I'm going to leave that enabled. But those are like some advice I could say. Sorry if I was a little all over the place. There's just a lot with setting up full body tracking. A lot. But from here, yeah, there you go. See, now I'm able to move from one place to another. But that's really just up to you on what you want to do. I think via the node graphs, you can be able to do much more fine tuning with the mocap if you so prefer. But even then, for the most part, it already does a pretty good job as is. So there you go. And now with VNyan, you're able to do your full body tracking. And now let's get into Warudo so we can send virtual motion capture to that program. Now let's get Warudo with virtual motion capture here. So I'm going to start with a new scene, but I will still show you for those with an existing scene how you'll set it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through basic setup right here, and I'm going to choose my character of choice, which for my case, I'm going to choose, let's see, Kana, there's so many files here, I'm sorry. Kana Athlete, I'm going to choose that one instead, and give it some time to process, and then once I have that loaded, then I'm going to click on OK. Then I'm going to choose that I know what I'm going to use. And then from there, I will choose the tracking I want. You'll choose which face tracking you want. Then you'll choose the pose tracking, which in this case, you'll have to choose VMC. You can also customize the pose tracking if you desire. So instead of track full body, you could have it track only specific ones if you want. Otherwise, I'm just going to leave it as yes here. And this is the port number here, which you can leave it by default because it's already correct, unless you need to change it, up to you. Or mirror tracking if you want, which for my case, I'm going to actually mirror the tracking. I like it. So I'm going to click on OK. Then here for secondary pose tracking, you could choose your finger tracking of choice. You could choose leap motion, stretch sense, media pipe, or VMC again if you want to receive like the the Valve Knuckles control, which I don't have a Knuckles controller thing. But if you want to and you have that set up in VMC, you can send it through this if you so desire, or anywhere else, like any other tracking solution you may have, or leave it as none if you prefer. For my case, I'm gonna leave it to none because I don't have any finger tracking on hand right now. So other than that, it also even mentions that if you change your mind later, you can always manually change it by going to character, motion capture, and sub tracking, which I will also show you where to find that in case you're confused. So I'll go ahead and click on OK. And again, make sure you double check and read this information provided. They are very important if you don't know what you're doing. So these are really good. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and choose OK. We're going to then, this is pretty much just saying that it's going to only set up the eye facial mocap for the face, the blend shape, and then have VMC take over for the head and body. So we'll have to click OK. And then from there, you can, I'll keep the current background and click on OK here. And from there, I have the tracking set up. So I'll use scroll wheel and pan. If you don't like the fact that it follows everywhere, simply press the V button, like V for vanilla ice cream, and it will then make it so it's free look and you're able to move around like this pretty much. Sorry if I look so arched, that is my calibration actually. It has issues right now. Even then, I'll use WASD to move around. Actually, I'm gonna show you how to correct that actually. So let's see here. So what we're going to do is that if you want to correct the rotation, you can click on your character here and use the Y here and rotate your character. I'll put this to, let's say 90. Actually, I'll put this as 60 degrees actually, but you can set the value however you want. It really depends on your use case, but you can set that up there. And then for VMC receiver, you can then set up the port number there, which by default, it already detects the right one. If you're using a different one, then please replace it in this area here. And you can adjust all the settings here, mainly for face tracking if you're using it. Otherwise, for body tracking, you'll have to do that in virtual motion capture itself. So there's that. Otherwise, for the most part, that's kind of it. You can again switch between mirror tracking or no mirror tracking, whichever. I'm gonna, like I said yes to it. And if you are if let's say you want to change your tracking, like you're in the existing scene and you want to swap the tracking out, then you can simply go over to character right here. You can go over to motion capture right here. You might want to double click that twice and then click on set up motion capture. And then from there, you can click on OK and then do the setup all over. So I'll do eye facial mocap. You can set up your settings how you want. Click OK. I'll do the VMC again. And, just set that to mirrored. Click OK. So that's up to you if you want to change it. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Now, in order to adjust the smoothing, because I don't know why this is still not in the settings here, but that's okay, because you have to do it in the blueprints, and I'll show you exactly where that is. So blueprints right here, you're going to go into the pose tracking, and then you're going to scroll out, and you're going to then move around here. And you're going to go over here and you're going to find the smooth rotation list right there. And you can then increase the smoothness. So that way, the higher the smoothness, the less jittery it will be. That's up to you. Although it will make your tracking slower. Same with the other program, VSeeFace and VNyan. The higher the smoothness, the slower it'll be. So choose which value works best for you. Other than that, there's even the smooth position as well if you want to have a different move. Different smoothness time. This means pretty much when you're moving from one place to another. That's pretty much it. So there you go. Pretty much that. And from there, if you want to do smooth transform, that's up to you. But other than that, you can even do the smoothing as well in the eye facial mocap here if you want. Same thing applies. you just find in the blueprint the smooth rotation. Well, we're not using rotation in this case, we're using blend shape. So you just find this blend shape here, increase smoothness for however you want it to be. And that's kind of it really for Warudo. There's other things that you can do with Warudo. So for example, you could do mocap toggle blueprints if you want to, which that's kind of complicated and it's its own, that thing would be its own tutorial. If I ever figure out how to properly explain how to do mocap toggles in Warudo, then probably I'll make a tutorial on that. But even then, there's a lot that you can do if you know how to do mocap toggles via blueprints. Go ahead and do that. If you want to do more customization stuff, however you want to do it, it's really just up to you at the end of the day. What tracking from virtual motion, like, are you doing Vive, Tundra, headset? There's so many factors. It really just depends on what you're doing. But I do hope at least that this tutorial helps you on knowing how to use virtual motion capture. Hopefully some of the tips I gave you helps. And I do apologize if there's too much information because, again, there's a lot of stuff I need you guys to be aware about, especially per program, because there is a lot of stuff that, depending on the user, there's some important things to know. Again, like the upper arm twist bones, for example. And please check out the description for the explanation on how to do the removal of the headset for SteamVR, or if you want any like tracking tips. There's actually some people I heavily recommend checking out, such as how to figure out your dongle interference, your occlusion issues. I will leave all those resources in the description below because there's a lot to this kind of tracking, especially if this ends up being your first video regarding Vive. But enough talking from here. Hope I did my best to explain everything. Let me know if there's any other tutorials that you wish that I make for you guys. And other than that though, I hope you have a lovely day and see you guys next time. Bye bye! Thank you to all my Snowflake members. In case you don't know, I have YouTube membership, so if you want to further support this channel and what I do, then feel free to join the Snowflake members. Otherwise though, just your support means so much to me and I appreciate every ounce of it. Either way though, with that being said though, hey goodbye everyone! I hope to see you guys next time, okay? Bye bye!